You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Mom deserves the best, and there's no better place to shop for Mother's Day than Whole Foods Market. They're your destination for unbeatable savings, from premium gifts to show-stopping flowers and irresistible desserts. Start by saving 33% with Prime on all body care and candles. Then get a 15-stem bunch of tulips for just $9.99 each with Prime. Round out Mom's menu with festive rosé, irresistible berry chantilly cake, and more special treats. Come celebrate Mother's Day at Whole Foods Market.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. All right, well, let's start with this, shall we? I am going to move on. Very sorry to our two actual winners, but I have not heard from them, and I don't want to keep Fogo or Jamie 1010 waiting. So listen and listen closely. The next two winners of the Fogo giveaway are Mad Fan and our buddy Kyle from Madison. And Kyle, if that's you twice, just give me two different emails. I just see mad in both of them. So, guys, please reach out. You can text the phone number 608-501-0718. Hit me up on social media if you're able. Otherwise, I don't know. Figure it out. Just don't show up at my doorstep. But let's get this wrapped up, all right? All right, so I want to do a fun little exercise here. Part of it is, I don't know, just something to do. Part of it is making fun of Nick Wright. Now, I went out of my way to talk about how Nick Wright was dead right about something the other day, and I've never agreed with him about anything my entire life. So I figure it's time to go ahead and pull back on that and get back into the swing of things. So he put NFL teams into tiers. Now, presumably these tiers are best to worst, and he just gave them funny little names. But I also think that NFC North teams could be put into probably multiple tiers. And also, he's wrong about all these. So as we go through these tiers, let's talk about who should be in them. So without further ado, let's get started with tier number 1.
Then we start at the bottom. Scouting Carson, Quinn, and Shador. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, and Shador Sanders.
All right, so the bottom tier is scouting, essentially, next year's top quarterbacks, whoever they may be. He's got the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Giants in there. I don't think any NFC North teams belong in there. I'm not gonna be petty. I'll be petty later. I'm not gonna be petty and say that there's an NFC North team that doesn't have a quarterback, because everybody does have a quarterback right now. We'll see if it pans out, but nobody should be scouting quarterbacks in the NFC North. So at the very least, nobody in the NFC North belongs on the bottom rung. Next tier.
Speaking of quarterback, praying we picked the right quarterback. Sure. 3 teams.
He has Washington, New England, and the Broncos as praying we picked the right quarterback. Okay. I can only assume that what you mean is you probably didn't pick the right quarterback, but I don't know in what universe the Bears and the Vikings are not praying they got the right quarterback. And right away, this is when I saw this, as soon as I saw this, I got ticked off, because automatically it means to me, first of all, they got put on a different tier, which maybe makes more sense, but it's the assumption that those are both really good picks and really good quarterbacks. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, we know the situation with those guys, and they're good, especially Caleb. Like, there's Don't bother praying about it. It's fine. That or we've got a really good team outside of that, right? Because everybody else, it's like the quarterback is all you've got, and if that doesn't work, we suck. And that's the other thing that, especially with the Bears, not as much with the Vikings, but the narrative around the Bears is they've got such a loaded team. And the only reason people think that is because the national media can't think beyond quarterback, wide receiver. I don't think they realize other positions exist. So they look at the Bears and they say they're loaded. They got Caleb, who obviously is good, and they've got maybe the best wide receiver group in football, which we don't know that, but I'm not going to fight that issue just based on, what DJ Moore did last year, based on what Keenan Allen's been his entire career, and based on the hype of their rookie. Sure, maybe, could be. I don't know. What about offensive line? Nah. What about tight end? Nah. What about defensive line? Ugh. What about linebacker? They spent a bunch of money there, but, also the guy they spent, $17 million on kind of sucks at football. What about corner outside of that one guy? What about safety? I know you brought in a free agent that might be good, but there's nobody else. I mean, I'm sorry. This is not a loaded roster by any stretch of the imagination. And let me just say, I want to get through this without just turning this into an immediate Bears rant, but it is freaking hilarious to me. Shut up. How quickly we shifted from Justin Fields is the only good thing about this team. The coaches suck. The offensive line sucks. His receivers suck. His defense sucks. Everything sucks. To now suddenly everything was good except the quarterback. And now that we replaced the quarterback, now they're loaded. What are we doing here? So you're telling me that Justin Fields, we went from Justin Fields just needs some help to Justin Fields was the only thing holding this team back in a matter of 3 months? That's what we just did? You bunch of freaking hacks? But okay, fine. The Vikings and the Bears are not praying that they pick the right quarterback. They're well above that tier. Okay, I'm sure they won't suck. And by the way, the Vikings are going to suck even if J.J. McCarthy's the guy. Whatever. They have too much stuff going on. Next up.
Local coverage. Thank God for local sports talk radio for these 4 teams, because I just don't know what they would have to do to really honestly make the show.
So the bottom line is, if it wasn't for local coverage, nobody would give a crap about these teams. That's not true for the Packers. It's no longer true for the Lions. They have garnered national interest. It's only true for the Bears because they got Caleb, and because the media won't shut up about them to make them seem interesting. The Vikings should probably be on this tier. Who outside of Minnesota Vikings fans could care any less about the Minnesota Vikings? Could care any more about the Vikings? Whatever. They don't care about the Vikings. Nobody cares. There is no appeal to the Minnesota Vikings. There is maybe some slight appeal of J.J. McCarthy if the guy even plays, which theoretically he's not supposed to. He should sit for a while. I'm guessing the Vikings won't do that. I think there might be a small contingent or smattering of Vikings fans that think Darnold might actually be able to reinvent his career in Minnesota. I mean, I hope they run with that. I really do. Actually, I guess I hope they don't, because if JJ needs time, I don't know. I don't know what I want. But especially with all the other quarterbacks and all the other interesting things, I mean, if you just created a tier of the most interesting quarterbacks, where does J.J. McCarthy fall? I mean, even as a rookie, he falls maybe middle of the NFL. Think about it. First of all, Caleb Williams, significantly more interesting. I think Jordan Love is more interesting. He's the 3rd most interesting quarterback in the NFC North, just because there's questions still about Jordan Love and the high level of play that he's been playing at. Think about the other rookies that are more interesting. And beyond that, not even just rookies. C.J. Stroud, more interesting. What about Anthony Richardson? I would say significantly more interesting to me. Heck, I'm more interested in Justin Fields returning kicks than I am with J.J. McCarthy. Now, if he actually starts, and if he actually plays well, maybe it's interesting. But even then, as I said, they're not a good football team. They need more time to build. They'll maybe be interesting next year. They're a let's revisit this in 2025 team. If JJ starts to pick it up and they start to fill a couple holes, suddenly Minnesota can be interesting again. 2024, not interesting. Not even a little bit interesting. All right, next up.
Local coverage of the teams. striving for above average. Hey, listen.
Striving for above average. They have the Falcons, the Saints, and the Buccaneers. Striving for above average. You're telling me that the Vikings and Bears are not in this tier? Striving to be above average? The Chicago Bears, that have been picking top 10 for a good period of time now. They had the number 1 pick 2 years ago. They just drafted a quarterback and are desperate for success. They're not striving for above average? Vikings likewise. Fingers crossed that we can just get to 9 wins. Well, of course, they're not going to think that about the Bears because, of course, the Bears are just going to be elite, all right? But why are the Vikings not on this tier? I mean, I'm being sarcastic about the Bears. They belong on this tier also. But in what universe are the Vikings any better than striving to be above average? You're telling me we're assuming they're above average? In no way am I saying we know they're below average. If they got a quarterback that can be halfway decent and, Justin Jefferson can just drag them across that finish line, sure. But I feel like that's the goal, especially since you get to about 9 to 10 wins, we're talking playoffs. Are we just automatically plopping the Vikings in the playoffs? Is that what we're doing right now? Come on now. Come on now.
Maybe, but probably not. I mean,
all right, maybe, but probably not, which, in my opinion, is about the same tier, possibly even below. He does have the Vikings. Maybe, but probably not. I mean, that's fair. And assuming the maybe we're talking about is maybe good, I think there's an argument to be made that the Bears could also be on this tier. I mean, I'm not sure where I fall on the 50-50 thing. I tend to fall on the, you have to prove it to me first, especially since all of the success entirely relies on guys that were not here last year. It's entirely dependent on a rookie quarterback who has serious flaws, a 32-year-old wide receiver who's never been played for Chicago, who's never played with this quarterback, who's never played with this coach or offensive coordinator. I don't know, man. I don't know that year one is the year that we declare definitely, or even maybe and probably. But I guess I won't fight that one to the death. The Vikings absolutely belong on the maybe but probably not tier. So there you go. Fair enough. Next tier.
make or break season. All three.
Make or break season, he has Buffalo, the Jaguars, and the Jets. I don't think anybody in the NFC North belongs in the make or break season. The closest you could possibly do would be the Lions, and I don't think that would be fair. They're about to extend their quarterback. They're a relatively young team. The Packers are still the youngest team in the NFL, and the other two teams just got their quarterbacks. So there are no make or break seasons. These are young teams, essentially all. I mean, two of them are building. The Bears would argue they're built. The Packers are just on the bottom rung of being built. And the Lions are, they're simultaneously kind of built and building at the same time. They've been good enough for a couple years, but still have some holes to fill that they're currently working on, which is what makes them a pretty scary team, to be honest. But yeah, I don't think this is the only one, I think, aside from needing quarterbacks that so far none of them really belong on.
Are they better than last year?
Are they better than last year? They've got the Dolphins, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. And I think the next tier is almost the same, honestly. So, well, we'll just go with this. A genuine question. Are they actually better than last year? I mean, honestly, you could put all four teams there. I mean, it's an honest question for any team. He highlights teams that started to decline to ask the question. You know, you got the Eagles, who had a massive collapse. He highlights Dallas, who got embarrassed by the Packers, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, the Packers, it depends on the question you're asking. Will the Packers be better than they were down the stretch? Very genuine question. Will they have a better record than last year? I mean, I don't think it's going to be worse than last year. If they regress, and massively, compared to, what they looked like they were going to be starting in week 9, then a regression would be the same record. The Lions, I don't necessarily expect to be better than last year. The Bears, I think you do expect some improvement. It's a question of how much. The Vikings, I don't know that they're going to be better. In fact, especially considering they were unbelievably impressive in their ability to win games that I thought they had no business winning. I mean, with no quarterback, they're out there winning football games. With no Justin Jefferson, they're out there winning games. So I don't know. I think that applies to most teams in the NFL. Next one.
Regression is not linear in the NFL.
All right, so he has the Packers and the Lions and the Texans on this, which is to say that, the idea is just because you got better doesn't mean it's going to continue up that track. A lot of teams that kind of got up into that playoff realm ended up falling off the next year. I think that's entirely unfair on two of the three, the Packers and the Texans. These three teams are very different. The Texans and the Packers are similar. The Lions are a different thing. The Packers and the Texans just got started. Expecting them to start regressing when they hit their stride in the last 9 weeks of football is kind of silly. It's not to say that it's impossible. It's not to say there won't be bumps in the road, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason the Lions are different, and I highlighted this, is because they were significantly better at the start of the year than they were at the end of the year. Let me just play out the rest of this to hear his thoughts on it.
It's not the NBA where, you get to 500, you get to the playoffs, then you're a contender. In 2022, the Chargers made the playoffs for the first time. The Seahawks made the playoffs. The Giants made the playoffs. They all went backwards. In 2021, the Patriots with a rookie quarterback, the Raiders with an interim head coach, the Cardinals with Kyler, they all went backwards. I am not saying that will happen.
And listen, to some degree, that's a fair observation. But just off the top of your head, if you have to analyze them individually. You can't just look at it collectively and say, there's a thing that happens, therefore it might happen to you, etc. Okay. But you have to look at them individually, right? Look at the Giants. The Giants had no business being in the playoffs. They were a fraudulent team that were never... Everybody could have told you they weren't going to be in the playoffs the next year. Daniel Jones and the Patriots, or not Mac Jones and the Patriots. That might be one of the... And I'd have to go look at it because I thought the same thing with the Steelers quarterback that actually looked quite good. And then if you look at his stats, they're not as good as it would appear. Partially because he just didn't play hardly at all. But you got to take him on a case-by-case basis. Kyler has never been a very linear quarterback in terms of just progressively getting better. It's always been weird. There's been injury issues. There's been, first he could run, but he couldn't throw. Then he could throw, but he couldn't run. It was very odd. Then there's all these issues about him gaming. The team is a mess. The owners and everybody, there's issues of people going to jail and guys are getting suspended for doing stuff they're not supposed to do. It's a complete mess. They don't have a football team. They can't build an offensive line. They can't figure out how to build a defense. They can't draft. I'm not saying it can't happen to the Texans and the Packers, but you have to actually make a case to me. Same with the Lions. I think you can make a case insofar as they were getting worse, and we have to see if they start off hot or if they start to look like they did toward the end of the year when they really weren't all that good. And remember, the playoff teams that they beat were kind of playoff teams to begin with. These are very so-so teams. They didn't face a playoff team until they hit the 49ers, and they did not win that game. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to make a case about the Packers and the Texans, especially the Packers, because they have such an unbelievably young roster. There's almost no area of the team you can look at and expect regression. You could try to say running back if you want to completely discount Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd and the fact that A.J. Dillon regressed last year and the fact that Aaron Jones was injured a large part of last year. You can try to say the wide receivers unless you ignore all the injuries to the wide receivers and the fact that they're unbelievably young and we're all rookie and second-round picks or second-year players. The tight ends were injured and rookies. You could say we lost David Bakhtiari except for the part where he hasn't played at all in years. There's almost no area of the team you can look at and expect regression. And I think that's probably true of all three teams. I'd have to kind of poke at the Texans and Lions a little bit, but again, I feel like this is just kind of a lazy tier insofar as I don't know where to put them, so I'll just say because you got in, I'm going to say it's not guaranteed that you get in again. Well, that's true of every team that got in, isn't it? Except maybe the Chiefs that get in every year, not only there, but to the Super Bowl and win it. I guess I don't understand the point of the tier at all, except to put them on like the lowest rung of the playoff tier, which is, big old middle finger to you.
Party crashers, everyone is going to have one of these 4 teams in the Super Bowl in the NFC. San Francisco will be the most popular choice. Detroit will be the next most popular choice.
No.
Then there will be Philly, and then there will be folks who will be like, you know what? I'm going to take a dart.
First of all, can we stop here? He didn't even mention the Chiefs. Next of all, Philly. You just put them on the are they better than last year tier, highlighting how they had one of the most spectacular implosions of any team in NFL history. But you're saying everybody's going to have them in the Super Bowl? What are you talking about? Anyways.
Of course, look out for the Packers. Those are going to be the entirety of the Super Bowl picks. I think one of these 2 teams could crash that party.
He has the Rams and the Bears. Good Lord. He didn't even mention the Buffalo Bills as a potential Super Bowl thing. But he has the freaking Rams and the Bears. The what? Listen, at least the Rams can get to the playoffs. If you want to make an argument for a playoff team that is not getting very much respect, possibly just kind of getting that last little bit of oomph, their quarterback can actually stay healthy, and they make a push. Okay, fine. I don't know where this is coming from, but fine. They seem to have been on the decline since, 2017. When did they win the Super? Maybe not even that long. The Bears. Come on, man. Listen, the only party crashers are the Packers and the Lions. And if you want to say that everybody's going to have them in there as a dark horse, fine. Then I guess nobody. Because the Vikings and the Bears do not belong in this tier. You put the Bears at one of the top tiers, saying that you think that they could... This is insane. This is... Oh, this needs to be put in the receipts column. Nick Wright has the Bears as potential Super Bowl candidates here.
I love the coaching of the Rams.
You love the coaching of the Rams now? Have you seen the Rams the last few years? What are you talking about? Are you still on that? Come on.
And what they showed last year with young players and now a healthy Stafford. And I think the Bears had one of the best off seasons any team has had in a decade. For those.
Oh, my Lord. One of the best off seasons any team has had in a decade. What did they do this offseason? What did they do? They got Kevin Byard, right, who the Philadelphia Eagles let walk after their defense imploded. They got DeAndre Swift, who nobody gives a crap about. They also grabbed 2 safeties from the Packers, Jonathan Owens and Tarvarius Moore. That means nothing. I mean, literally the only person that possibly maybe makes a difference is Kevin Byard. And he's playing for $7 million a year. We're going to pretend like this is some kind of a home run hit? And they lost Eddie Jackson. So how much extra value do they have at safety? They lost Cody Whitehair and added Ryan Bates from the Bills, interior offensive lineman. Whoop-de-doo. And then they added Keenan Allen. You're telling me Keenan Allen and their 4 or 5 draft picks are the best offseason you've seen in a decade? Are you drunk? Or are you just that big of an idiot? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. You're saying that because they drafted Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze and a backup tackle and a punter and a 5th round pass rusher? You've never seen a better... Dude, go back to when the Bears got Khalil Mack. I'm not even saying it was the right decision, but you're telling me that wasn't a better offseason? Look at this. That year, they got Khalil Mack. They got Allen Robinson. They drafted Roquan Smith, James Daniels, the interior guy, Bilal Nichols in the 5th round that actually went on to be something kind of decent, and went to the playoffs that year. This isn't even that good of an offseason. How is this not better? I mean, Khalil Mack by himself. Are you just saying that because they got a quarterback? Is that the only reason you're saying that? Because then can we go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple years ago? Is that a better offseason? What are you even talking about? Best offseasons in a decade, you absolute moron. Every team that's ever had a first-round pick that ends up being a quarterback, apparently. I mean, what about last year? No, never mind. This is the dumbest pile of drivel I've ever heard in my entire life. After that he has group therapy. These are just teams that were at the top and then got knocked out. Pretty much, I mean, the entire NFC North needs group therapy. The Packers once again got beat by the 49ers. I mean, that's painful. The Lions maybe needed the least just because they finally got somewhere, you know? I mean, they can celebrate where they got to. The Bears went through the whole Fields debacle. I don't think they've fully gotten over that. I think that they're using Caleb Williams to mask the unimaginable amounts of trauma they went through after going 100% all in on Justin Fields. And if Vikings fans weren't so apathetic about everything, would you guys care about something, for crying out loud? I mean, I suppose they may need therapy about the fact that they're potentially borderline likely going to be fourth in the division. And then the Chiefs are on top. Obviously, none of us belong in there. So, anyways, just a fun little thought exercise, I thought. Why don't we go ahead and take a very late break, and we'll be right back. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. We all have smartphones, and we all know they're pretty amazing, but they also can be amazingly distracting, especially when we're around other people. So US Cellular wants us to reset our relationship with our phones by putting down our phones for $5. That's right, a company that sells phones wants us to put down our phones. And to see what we find, learn more at uscellular.com/built for us.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called
The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
So I found this little conversation kind of interesting. It kind of came out of nowhere, but it's, I guess, kind of an interesting little story. This is Colin Cowherd, and he is speaking to John Middlecoff. I don't know John Middlecoff's history. I don't know where he came from. Apparently, he worked in the industry at some capacity, but here's what that conversation sounded like.
So I think having the cohesion, the Packers is a great place to work. I remember when we were there, when I worked in the league, everyone was always kind of envious of because it was like this chill vibe, but they were winning big, and it was just, you're the Green Bay Packers. There was like the pressure we had in Philadelphia. You felt it every day when you went in the building.
Sure.
They definitely don't have that.
So I'll be honest, I don't even know where that came. It was just kind of like a weird little segue that he made. He was talking about Baltimore and some other teams, but it was interesting to hear, and I don't know what time period he's talking about, but I think it kind of makes sense if you think back on the Packers. First of all, they were always winning, so that would be a cool place to work. But you think about Mike McCarthy, especially toward the end. I mean, it just kind of felt like everybody was on autopilot a little bit, which I don't think was a good thing. I think it ended up being a bad thing. But, I mean, that report came out, the big one that trashed McCarthy and Rodgers and everybody else. I think it was unintentionally McCarthy, but it was, he'd go up and get massages when there's supposed to be meetings and everything else. Just really weird stuff. But you sort of got that impression that it was a very laid-back environment, probably too much so, right? The coaches would never get fired, no matter how bad the teams were doing. It was the same coaches every single year. The only time they would leave is if they got hired away. You felt it in the building with the players. It just felt like Clay Matthews and like the pass rushers. They were on autopilot. Everybody was just kind of doing their own thing. It was the opposite of the team we have now. It was a bunch of veterans and a bunch of guys that have been doing it for a long time. And there are some advantages to that, but there are also some disadvantages. It's just a job. It's just you just come in, you do your thing. Everybody knows what to do. And probably having a guy like Rodgers or like Favre for that matter, or hopefully like Jordan Love, it takes a lot of pressure off. It shouldn't. It shouldn't take pressure off. Everybody should feel tremendous pressure. But when you know you can come in and do 75% and you're still Super Bowl favorites some years, I think that sort of degrades the passion over time. You do the least amount of work that you can get away with. And again, when you got Rodgers and you got some studs in there like Devontae and Jordy and all this stuff, you can probably slack off a little bit. And even guys like Rodgers and Jordy, they could take a little bit extra time while everybody else is grinding in the offseason because I'm freaking Rodgers. So what if I'm doing 60% of what this guy or that quarterback trying to get their first contract is doing? I got more between my ears than this guy will ever learn in his lifetime. But at the same time, I think it prevents you from being everything you can be. And it's tough because how do you prevent that? Now there's a lot of passion for the Packers within the Packers organization, right? Even the coach and GM are relatively young. And I think they're trying to instill this more passionate group, and they have that. But they don't necessarily have the experience. And then as they start to get experience, we got a bunch of guys that are paid. Kenny's been paid a bunch of times. Rashawn's been paid. Elton got paid. Jordan's about to get paid. Like, we just got started, and like half of our stud guys are paid. Jair got paid. So how do we keep that passion up and that apathy down, right? As you start to hit 28, 29, 30, you're on the back end of your career. You've heard all the speeches. You've done all the rah-rah stuff. Like, you got your money. You're maybe going to get one more big payday. I don't know. But it was interesting to hear that everybody wanted to work in Green Bay. That was like the place to be. And part of it is the winning and part of it is the culture. And notice how nobody said nobody wanted to go to Green Bay because it was cold and there's nothing to do there. I feel like people from big cities just say that stuff because they're obsessed with I don't know, what do you do in the city all day that you couldn't live in Green Bay? I don't understand. You going to Broadway shows every weekend, or what are you doing? I don't know. Going to Gordon Ramsay 5-star restaurants? Just can't live without traffic? I don't get it. I have no idea what's going on in these cities that's not happening in Green Bay that you can't live without. And it's what? Hour and a half, 2 hours to Milwaukee, and then another hour and a half from there, 2 hours to Chicago. 3 hours to Minneapolis or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what is missing in your life in Green Bay. But anyway, somewhere in there, they're talking about cohesion. It's all over the place, but they keep coming back to the Packers randomly, even though this isn't about the Packers. But then it comes back full circle, and they start talking about that and the Packers. I don't know. It's very weird. Here you go.
I think for 30-plus years, the Packers have just had a lot of cohesion. Not a lot of people leave. Their coaches do, but their scouts, I don't know if they pay top-notch relative to the NFL executives, but I sure know when they're winning, things are having success, people like working there.
Yeah, you can also buy a hell of a house in Milwaukee.
Live like a king.
$490,000. It was when I saw the list, it was like, God, Green Bay knows what they're doing. And to your point, quarterbacks kind of make it all work. Listen, Brett Veach at Kansas City's had some misses. You forget Sky Moore, you forget him really quickly. Mahomes makes you forget shit really quickly.
Well, it's like someone told me with the Jets a couple years ago. They're like, they had all those picks in the top, the first couple rounds for 2 straight years. We could go 7 of 8. They all could be Pro Bowlers. If Zach's a whiff, we're in trouble. We'd go 1 of 8. If Zach's a hit, contract extensions. Well, what happened? They went 7-8, maybe not 7-8, but 5 or 6 of 8, and Zach's the problem, and they got issues. That quarterback, I mean, if Jordan Love, and we're all going to pencil him in, I do think there's a difference of kind of, they got to fly under the radar a little bit this year. They started slow, then they came on. Everyone next year is going to be looking at them like double-digit wins, playoff team. It is a different pressure. That's why I give a lot of credit to the Lions. Everyone took the Lions seriously this year coming in, and they handled it well. Like it's another. Now LaFleur has success. Now he's been a part of those type teams with Aaron, so I feel comfortable with it. But sustaining high level play year in, year out, that's hard. So there's going to be a lot of tangible pressure on Jordan Love next year.
Well, I mean, they kind of glossed over a lot of stuff. First of all, obviously, I agree with the premise that the Packers just know what they're doing, and they build things the right way, and you can see how well things are coming together. It seems as though the one critique is, now the Packers, everybody sees them coming. Now, in order for that to be the case, let me just be very clear. It has to be true that the top-tier team that we saw at the end of last year is the team that we're going to see. Otherwise, why would anybody care? Nobody's going to see you coming. But assuming we acknowledge that, that's really the only other critique. I got another video queued up. That's essentially the same thing. It's a lot of positives. However, the big negative being, now you can't fly under the radar. Here's my counter to that. Actually, let's go to the other video, and we can address it then. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break now. We'll come back. We'll run through this video. This is from Speak. It's got one of my favorite commentators, LaShawn McCoy. I don't know why. It's not that I always agree with him. It's just that he's brutally honest. You get the feeling sometimes that like the panel wants to kind of go with the flow and say nice things, and it's like, dude's trash. I think it's because he hated Fields. I think that was why it just endeared me to him. Like everybody on the panel is like, oh, you can't say that about Fields. It's Justin Fields, man. Everybody knows it's good because it's not his fault. And dude was just like, guy's trash, man. What do you want me to say? I've seen trash. I've played with trash. Dude's trash, okay? I know. I've seen a fair amount. That dude, no good. No good. So, I mean, he's going to come at the Packers once in a while, but I respect the guy because he could not care any less about groupthink. I love that. I respect that. I think that's the Packernet Podcast Network special, by the way. If nothing else, you can come here and trust that our opinions are exactly our opinions. He is sitting next to maybe one of my least favorite, though, which is Joy Taylor. But, take it or leave it.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's peachy.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
510 Whiskey declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
He does. Are you confident, though, that the Packers are going to continue to ascend this season, James?
Very confident. We're going to
Jones, let's go.
No, I'm playing. I don't know where we're going.
Are we doing this? Jay was so confused. Jay was like, I was like, are we betting?
I'm definitely on the hype train, though. The Green Bay Packers is going to be a really, really, really good football team. You add Josh Jacobs. Yep. You got Jordan Love, who is going to be a superstar in this league. It is only 5 quarterbacks that has ever thrown for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns in their first season. So
with a half a season where he was trying to figure stuff out.
Jordan Love is like that.
They're showing a graphic here. 4,000 plus passing yards, 30 plus passing touchdowns. First season as a full-time starting quarterback. Here are the quarterbacks that have done it. Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, and Kurt Warner. Okay, there's your list.
No throw he cannot make. And you see the list right here. The Brock Purdy, the Justin Herbert, obviously Patty on that thing, Kurt Warner, and then you got the young Jordan Love. But there's no throw he cannot make. He benefited from sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and learning. I think he is going to be a superstar at the quarterback position. And then to get him Josh Jacobs in the running game. And I talked about it during the playoffs last year. They have 4 really good young wide receivers that you do not have to pay no time soon, and you can still build this roster around Jordan Love. The Packers are going to be a good football team for a long time under Jordan Love.
I agree. I think this division is going to be the toughest division, or up there with the toughest division.
By the way, just to be clear, for those of you that are like, why don't you like Joy? First of all, she was all in on Justin Fields and was mad at LaShawn for saying otherwise. Also, she was very adamant that the Packers are going to be trash without Aaron Rodgers. She was all in on that hype train. She wasn't alone, but she was like condescending, rolling her eyes, like, give me a break. This team goes to 0. And where are we sitting right now? Oh, I agree. Oh, do you agree? Please tell me what you think.
In the NFL, really after this year, I think it will be cemented as such, especially once we see what the Vikings are able to build, because you've already got the Packers and Lions as real contenders in the division, and now you add everything.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is Rodgers coming back? What are we talking about here?
The Bears have going on. So right now, I think it's the AFC North, but they're going to be up in discussion very, very quickly. Outside of that list that you just pulled up, James, he is also one of 4 quarterbacks this year to have 4,000 passing yards and 30 touchdowns. Dak, All-Pro, runner-up in MVP. Goff, who was in the NFC Championship game. And Purdy, who played in the Super Bowl. So I think that there are really good comps for his numbers. We saw what he was able to do in Dallas. Certainly Cowboys fans remember that. And I wasn't really, I'll be honest, I wasn't completely sure what LaFleur was. I needed to see what he was, and he is a really, really good coach. And he's shown the ability to develop players, which I think is a sign of a coach that not only has...
I'll be honest, I'm being petty, but I do love that with absolute brute force, the Green Bay Packers have been able to shift the narrative, right? Because you know there are a lot of people that hated the idea of actually believing, but you get to the point where it's just too hard to deny.
Has a good understanding of his personnel, but the culture and what kind of offense he wants to run, what kind of team he wants to have. And
And again, if I may interrupt, I know this is positive and I'm being negative, but I just been suffered through last year listening to the bull crap from these people. To be clear, Matt LaFleur never got any respect, not because of anything wrong with the offense or anything. The play calling, there was nothing wrong. The problem was that all credit went to Rodgers. He sucked up all the credit from everybody. Nobody could be called good because, you've got Rodgers, which is bullcrap and disrespectful in every possible way. But sure, now that Rodgers has been removed and everybody's allowed to now excel, okay, fine, I guess. Like, I needed to be shown. No, you needed to frickin' smarten up. But here we are.
Really good team. I don't expect them to take a step back. Outside, of course, we're not accounting for injuries and things of that nature. We're talking about what's on paper right now, what they've built on already. I think that they are a team that's going to continue to ascend. Shady, what do you think about that?
I agree with you guys. I think that he's going to get a lot better. I mean, this is his first year starting, right? And I always say that in your first year, I mean, that's the worst he'll ever be, right? Because he's going to get better and better and better. Great. Corey, you talked about...
Don't know that that's true, but I will allow it in my little courtroom of podcasting here.
On floor, I want to give him some credit because when Aaron Rodgers was there, you didn't get a chance to really see him really be the coach that we wanted to see, right? It's like he got a goat here that's been here for so long, has accomplished way more than you have. It's like, okay, whatever Aaron kind of wants, Aaron kind of gets. Now you get to see some coaching, right? If you watch this year, you see the different formations. You see getting everybody involved, running the ball, right? Keeping everybody honest. And then small things like letting Jordan Love in the option game, right? RPO game, like all those type of things, utilizing his legs and his arms. So I just think that the Packers are going to be a good, really, really good team, man. Very young.
Very young.
The thing about the Dallas Cowboys loss, not because they just beat a good Dallas Cowboys team with 9 All-Pros, right, in the second MVP quarter. No,
keep going.
I'm not.
Hey, we talk about the pack today. Kill the Cowboys, man.
No, but I'm saying like a big...
By the way, I appreciate what he's saying, by highlighting how good the Dallas Cowboys are, because immediately after the Packers did what nobody said they could, nobody picked the Packers to win that game with the exception of a couple people. I'm sure James Jones did because he's James Jones. But I mean, this was unbelievable how good that Dallas Cowboys team was. It's the best that they've been maybe like since the 90s. I mean, they were the best across numerous metrics. I mean, he said, 9 All-Pros or something absolutely absurd. Not that I necessarily care about All-Pro, but it's still an unbelievably impressive roster. And the Packers went in and beat that. And all we hear is the Cowboys choked, the Cowboys choked. It might not have been their best game, but to give no credit to the Packers for what they did, come on now.
15 to 16, game winning streak at home.
Yeah.
That's one thing, right? But the bigger picture is for a young team like that to come on the road and they get a win, that just shows you how good this team is really going to be.
It was a big win. It was.
Right? And then when the Cowboys did make answers back, they answered again. So I just think that sky's the limit for this team.
But that's a really good point, too, that you guys brought. Because this was year one for LaFleur, too. And you've seen how Jordan Love started the season. It was, is he? It was a lot of that. And as the season went on, LaFleur opened up the playbook, kind of like McCarthy did with Dak, and you've seen Jordan Love take off. So year two, coming into the system, knowing exactly how you want to run this thing for Jordan Love, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be fun to watch.
So much harmony.
By the way, I don't agree with that assessment that the reason Jordan was struggling is because he was being held back, and then once they opened up the book, that's when everything got better. I think that's nonsense, but I don't care. It is what it is. We're here now.
On the set right now.
I know.
Everybody agrees. I'm right there with you. I did this yesterday, but I'll throw it up again. My power rankings from this week, if I can see them.
Back at the top?
From Fox Sports.
Dave Hellman? No idea.
Who's number 2? I got him number 6 in the entire NFL. I mean, we got some
Can you go down to the list, though? Let's go to the list, though, Dave.
Dude, this list is trash. This guy put together come on, listen, these guys they're on television. Dave Hellman, FoxSports.com, post-draft NFL power rankings. I mean, this is brutal here.
No, that's not the segment.
Number one, the Chiefs.
Disagree with. That's not what I was trying to do, guys.
You got the Eagles as the second best team in football?
Seriously.
Are you blind? Look, what do you mean? Why you ask me right next to you? Look.
The Eagles' talent.
I know this is a Packers segment.
The Eagles' talent combined with what they did in the offseason, what's not to like? They were in 11.
Bro, they fell apart. They had to tear everything down and start over. They're so god-awful. I don't think he watches football. I think he just slept through the last season. What are you talking about? The Eagles are number 2. That is asinine.
Been in one team last year. They add Saquon Barkley. They do good work in the draft.
That's Saquon Barkley. What did Saquon Barkley do for the Giants? Nothing. Who gives a crap about Saquon Barkley?
Their 2 top draft picks are defensive players.
Also, you hoping and wishing right now.
That's not hoping and wishing when you're talking about top 40 picks. And Vic Fangio? Come on, they brought
Vic Fangio. Who cares about Vic Fangio? When was the last time Vic Fangio had a good defense? Chicago in 2018? Who cares? Who cares? They brought in Fangio. They drafted 2 defensive players because their defense was one of the worst in football to end the season. It imploded. And by the way, they got rid of some of their players. That's how Chicago ended up with so many Eagles players because they purged everybody. They've got their safety now. You're out of your freaking mind. Like, what are we doing here, dude? Ay.
Compliment your team, and you got me over here defending a different take entirely.
Was the Ravens on your list?
Yeah, they're after the Packers.
Ravens lost a lot.
They somewhere down there.
Which actually,
the Ravens are at 7? Come on, I'm not, whatever.
I will use this to make my point. The Packers, a lot of teams at the top of the league, even the best ones, have guys they need to replace. Who did the Green Bay Packers lose from last year's team?
Aaron Jones,
who they replaced with Josh Jacobs.
Exactly.
Other than that, like David Bakhtiari played 1 game for this team.
Yeah,
they had a first-round pick on the offensive line. We haven't even brought up the defense.
Oh, come on.
Packer fans.
Come on now.
How you feel about replacing Joe Barry finally after 3 years?
Talk to him.
Jeff Hafley doesn't even have to be great. This Packer defense just has to be middle of the pack.
Exactly.
They got to the second round of the playoffs with a defense that was 27th in defensive DVOA. They weren't good.
27.
That's
pretty close to the bottom.
I know it might be hoping and wishing,
you,
James, but they added 2 big draft picks to their defense as well. The sky
free agents.
is the limit.
Sound like
for
we
these
should
guys.
be up a little bit, huh?
6 is a perfectly reasonable place for them.
First of all, 6 is not They were higher than 6th last year, you dummy. They were better than 6th. I'm not talking about where they ended up. I don't know where they ended. They picked 25, so they were what? The 7th best team or something? Maybe 6th. I don't know. Count backwards. But that's ridiculous. They were better than the Lions. We've been over this. They were significantly better than the Eagles. Come on.
They are still one of the youngest teams in the NFL, but I'm so excited about them.
Well, what I love about that play.
Listen, it's a great thing to be nitpicking about. Like saying it's disrespectful to call the Packers 6th. Can you imagine this conversation last year? To find out that we're in this spot, that you'd be listening to this podcast and me getting ticked off about being ranked 6th in the NFL. That is such an amazing thing. We should be higher. We should be 4th or something like that. This is the kind of argument we're having. Not like, yeah, we picked, 3rd, but look who we added. We're going to maybe even be playoff teams like the frickin' Bears and Vikings this year.
Playoff win and then being a young team is the experience that it gives you. So going on the road and beating that Dallas team, having won, 16 games in a row, 16 at home in a row. Dallas is a really good team.
And a veteran team.
A veteran team, great at home, a streak. That is a hard place to go into and win. And you're a young team, and when you're a young team, and this is your first time there, you have those nerves. You don't know what to expect. It's hard to win. It's hard to win on the road during the regular season. In that environment, to go in and play the way that they played, and the score was not indicative whatsoever of what that game was. I think that gives you a bit of confidence going into next season. Okay, we know what we're capable of doing. We did it last year. We know what to expect when we get to the postseason and we don't get to play at home.
I want to add to her point, too, here, where it's like, not only do we know what we know, but I think Jordan Love really invigorated everything. When Jordan Love might have been struggling and the play calling maybe was kind of rough because Matt LaFleur wasn't exactly sure how to do what with what he had, it's easy to get discouraged. But when you see the offense doing what it's doing, even as a defensive player, as a special teams player, whatever, that's when everybody comes to life. That's when it's like we're a part of something big here. That's when it's like I get to be a part of a Jordan Love football team, and you want to support the guy, and you want to get behind the guy, and you know that if we can support him, we can win a Super Bowl. Jordan Love turning out to be great is what's going to invigorate this entire team to not just play well on week 1, but to go hard in the offseason, right? Because you realize that I want to be a part of this team because this team's going to win a Super Bowl. This team is going to get me paid because I'm going to look real good out here. This team's going to make me famous. I'm going to be all over the place. I'm a part of a great defense, a great offense, great coaching staff, great organization. Like, this is great. I need to be a part of this. I need to get to work. As opposed to if Jordan Love was a bust and we'd be hearing about it, it's just easier to get discouraged. I think it's so transformational for Jordan to have become what he became at the end of the season.
Know how we can match up against some of the best talent in the league, just despite the fact that we're young. So, and I think that gives LaFleur a lot of confidence too.
No doubt. And the one thing that's going to change this year, though, is expectation.
Yes.
It was zero expectation on the Green Bay Packers last year, right? How is Jordan Love going to look? We don't care if he's bad. We don't care if he's good. The expectations is up now. Jordan Love ain't sneaking around no more. These guys know who we are. The defensive coordinators is right now watching film on how to stop him and slow down him. So it is going to be a learning curve for him again, but he'll show up. He'll be ready to go.
They do play the NFC's toughest schedule in 2024. They're tied for.
All right, so those are the two points that I was kind of trying to come to at the end here, or, prior to even getting to this video. Number one is there's a lot of pressure, and I think that's fair. I'm not going to say they have more pressure, but it's different pressure, and it is a lot of pressure, right? Now you're expected to be something. However, I really don't think Jordan was under less pressure last year. I can't imagine the amount of pressure he was under. First of all, not even knowing if you can be that guy. I mean, you tell yourself, I know I can be, and I believe I can be, but you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen when you go out there. The amount of pressure, the amount of eyes on you to see if you can follow in the footsteps of Aaron Rodgers, the pressure of that, with the entire weight of the organization, the fan base, everything on your shoulders, the legacy on your shoulders, compared to now going, well, now everybody expects you to be great. So if you're just like really good instead of great, then bro, come on. That is not the same level of pressure. And as far as toughest schedule, we'll see. We don't know what the toughest schedule is going to be. I say this every single year. It might be the least likely to be easy schedule just based on, carryover from last year. But it's never correct. The idea that we know how good teams are going to be because of how good they were last year. We don't know. So some of these teams that are expected to be good, and a lot of it has to do with record, like the Eagles. Oh, that's a tough matchup. Yeah, but is it? It's tough because they had a really good record because of how good they were at the start of the year. But if they pick up where they left off last year, that team is going to be straight trash, and we're going to steamroll them. So we'll see. Might be very, very hard. It might even be harder than we think. Some of these teams that might not be good could end up being great. I don't know. But anyways, that's all I got for you. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.